Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Let's switch into Spanish, just in case there's something here in the public that they don't speak English. Hola a todos, soy Victoria Balbuena de Incibe y es un placer teneros en la 19ª edición de ENISE. Dentro de ENISE, como veis, tenemos un montón de actividades y diferentes tracks de contenido. Y uno de ellos que queremos destacar este año es el papel de la inversión que tiene la inversión en el ecosistema. Let's move on again into English. So that's the reason why we organized this panel to talk about what we should do here in Europe to make European cyber champions. So in order to talk about that, I won't be letting you know my opinion. I have some experts to support what I have in mind, and I'm sure some of them, they share my ideas. So let me welcome to the stage to Carlos Barrios, the moderator. Thank you, Carlos. Damien, please come up. Manuel, thank you so much. Don't worry, Carlos is going to let you know who they are. Sarah, please join us. And finally, Bart, I invite you to join us here in the stage. So now that I have introduced you to all of these great people, let's start. Carlos, the panel and the stage is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. $130 billion is the cybersecurity market in Europe. Roughly an ecosystem of 1,000 companies. 47% of that ecosystem is of companies less than 50 employees. Only 32 companies have more than 500 employees. Welcome today to a panel debate about cybersecurity and the creation of cyber champions. Is Europe prepared to invest, develop, and create companies that they can be global leaders? We're going to go through 4 areas. We're going to talk about the evolution of the European investment landscape. We're going to talk about the role of specialized funds, how to build ecosystems that they are connected, that they relate to investment companies, enterprises, institutions, and academia. Which are the barriers to scale? And whether it makes sense or not, the creation of a Pan-European investment platform or investment vehicle. And for that, I have the pleasure of being joined by Damien Henault, Managing Director of Forgepoint. Forgepoint is a global cybersecurity investment firm with presence across the globe, offices in London, US. Sarah Isal, Senior Associate at Auriga Cyber Ventures, a specialized fund in cybersecurity, cyber investments. Manuel Precioso, represented Cyberireland. Cyberireland has built one of Europe's most advanced clusters within the area of cybersecurity. And last but not least, Bart Houlleberghs, Managing Partner of TIN Capital, a leading European cyber tech fund with investments across Europe. Thank you very much for joining me. We will be addressing those issues one by one, starting with Damien. Which is your view on the investment landscape in Europe? From your perspective, how would you describe the current state of the European investment landscape?
So thank you very much for this introduction and kind words. So first of all, I would just take one point you made about the size of the market from the vendor perspective, if you will. So about 40% of the end market for cyber is Europe. So if you want to be a global player, you have to be present in Europe. and it's also the fastest growing market. So roughly, cybersecurity globally, the growth around 9 to 10%, and in Europe it's 13%. So if you want to be a vendor in a global player in Europe, you have to address the market. Secondly, I think it's a very fragmented but very interesting market because there's incredible talent scattered around. You mentioned Ireland as an example. You also have the Oxford-Cambridge area. You have Paris-Saclay in France. You have EPFL, ETH in Zurich, Central Navarra in Barcelona. So I think the root of cyber is really about deep IP, deep tech, capacity to have innovative IP that goes as fast, not faster on the attack side, that have been the early bird and early adopters in AI. So I think there's incredible mass of talent in the market. The issue is that historically, there's been a gap between early stage and then growth stages companies in Europe. So essentially, you've seen a flurry of very interesting companies in Europe, but that have failed to become champions because they were either sold or acquired too early. They didn't have a chance to realize their full potential. But that is evolving, and I think that's why it's very important to think in those terms around having a pan-European approach, helping the companies to become first regional champions and global champions. And that's pretty much the raison d'être of Fortune Capital International. So about a year ago, on the stage here, we've announced the launch of a dedicated fund for investing in Europe in cyber and AI. And the reason why, recognizing there is incredible talent, but you need to have funds who can go multi-stages from early to growth to really let the companies develop their potential and become champions regionally first and then globally. And there's a flurry of examples, frankly. So slightly different in the US as well, because the US is a broader and deeper market. So if you were to map the market in the US, you can go at a micro level in a segment, really have 50 companies that are relevant in that space. In Europe, you might find 2 or 3, in that micro segment. So you have to have more of a bottom-up approach when you invest in Europe than a top-down approach because you don't have the same breadth and depth of the market. However, the market is evolving because you see a flurry of champions that have historically emerged from Europe. So I will name a few. So Sophos, for instance, was a UK-born company. Mimecast was a European-born company. Darktrace was European as well. We were early investor in a company in Spain called Alien Vault, which was probably one of the first big exits of a European company, Spanish company actually doing threat intelligence, sold to AT&T for about $1 billion. That was the first big exit in the sector of a European company. And more recently, there was a very good example of how it's evolving. You've probably seen a couple of months ago the acquisition of Hornet Security by Proofpoint. And that's, for me, a very good example of how the landscape is changing. Because Hornet Security was a German player who grew organically first and made some select acquisition, Value Secure in France, some other basically, to become a regional champion. And then they were acquired for close to $1 billion by Proofpoint, not as usually it is the case for acquisition in Europe for the IP or for the team or the product, but really to be their main beachhead for Europe, essentially. They're the flagship commercial vehicle for Europe to sell the whole Proofpoint platform, and that's very interesting. So I think, in Europe, I think, you have to be, there's not one market. In the US, quite easy. You arrive in the US, you come from Arizona, from San Francisco, from Boston, you have one big market. In Europe, despite all the efforts, you still first, let's say, a French company or Spanish company or Dutch company, and eventually you become, a DACH company or Southern Europe company and so on. But I think, for a number of reasons, language and all the reasons, but I think, the market is incredibly interesting, and I think, we trying to really occupy the space, essentially coming after some of the early stage fund, and some here are represented at Auriga and so on. We really try to bridge the gap between this incredible pool of talent and opportunities, but lack, and it's probably a good transition for next topic, the lack of specialized funds who really understand the market and can go through the life and the growth and various cycle of the company to really let them realize the potential. So that's our mission statement, and we've been around for the national vehicle for only less than a year, and with 6 investments in the region, 2 in Spain. So we're very bullish about the area. So that in a nutshell would be my views on the market. So incredible talent, great opportunity, still quite fragmented. There's an arbitrage to be made as well because with a similar level of maturity, I would say from purely financial angle, the entry valuation of a good asset in Europe would be lower than an equivalent asset in the US with similar commercial traction maturity. So we, as investors, especially as investors, we have two hats. We have to find the best technology and also the best investment. That's our mission statement at the end of the day. So Europe is particularly attractive. You have the talent, you have the IP, and also an arbitrage from a valuation standpoint because you can actually, extract more value by investing in companies at a similar maturity at a lower entry valuation than you do in the US company. So for all these reasons, I think it's an extremely attractive market. The time to invest in Europe in cyber is now. And I think the activity, Bart will talk about the deal that we just announced last week, the level of activity is incredible. You see some growth stories coming up, similar to the US trajectory. One example is a company called Filigrane in France. So Filigrane went from stealth to raising a Series C of above 50 million in the space of 2 years. So they went from, really doing their bootstrap kind of MVP to having a round preempted by US fund, access to Series A, then another round 6 months after by Inside, and then announced last week 58 million euro round led by Eurazeo and T Capital. So that's an example again of how the market is evolving from a flurry of early stage companies to companies that are here for the long run and are becoming champion in the street area.
Excellent. As you describe it, one of the points I take with your description is, as paraphrasing Warren Buffett, invest in what you know. And in that sense, I think I would like to move to the next one, to Sarah. Sarah, Auriga Cyber Ventures has built precisely an early stage specialized fund. You do know what you invest on. You hopefully no. You guys are doing a great job on that. So, how do you assess the maturity of European early and growth stage cybersecurity startups today? Do you feel we are now building companies with the ambition and scalability to compete globally, or how do you see that from your perspective, from our Auriga perspective?
First of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, you said it yourself, Warren Buffett said something very interesting, invest in what you know, and this is exactly what we try to do at Auriga. We're a cybersecurity specialized fund, and we invest in early stage European cybersecurity startups. Maybe I will start because you mentioned why is that important to invest in what we know, actually. And I think the first thing is, and it echoes your question, first thing is that thematic funds, by investing in cybersecurity startups, it produces faster champions. Because there's a very interesting 2024 McKinsey report saying that thematic in investing translates insight into conviction before market consensus forms. And what is interesting is that what we believe is that with a deeper understanding, deeper knowledge of the market, then we create faster conviction, and with faster conviction, faster scalability. And we have a role as early stage investor to identify the future leaders of a new category, to identify the early signals for a new category or a new leader. And what we've been seeing in Europe is super positive. I mean, you were talking about how in the past couple of years, Europe has built potential champions. They're not yet champions. You also mentioned one of the issue is that to create a champion, we need to build an ecosystem around them. And I think thematic funds have a great resources to do so, because by building sector native LPs around us, CISOs, distribution allies, resellers, integrators, we really build the gap between the problem owners, so the CISOs, and the problem solvers. And I think this is exactly what early stage startup need, is this market access, because there's no way cybersecurity startup can scale without in isolation. They need trust, they need access, they need validation, and bringing this market access capital to startups is really bridging the gap between innovation and solution providers and adoption, because we've recently published a study with Cézanne, which is a cybersecurity club in France, and 3 insights that I want to share about this study. It was about the relationship between CISOs and startups. We've interrogated 175 CISOs from different sectors and different size of companies. And what is interesting, so 3 things. The first one is, I think it's 45% of them say that there is no sanctuarized areas where major vendors are indispensable. That's the first point. The second is 45% of them said that the main obstacle in the relationship with startups is procurement constraints. And the third point is 59% are ready to be part of co-design design partnership programs. And what this means is that there's an opportunity gap in Europe. It's as simple as that. In the US or in Israel, it's the link between CISOs and startup is really organic. It's not yet in Europe. It needs to be engineered. And by having thematic fund, specialized investors, creating a community of relevant people around the startups, we help bridging the gap between innovation and adoption. And this is something I think we really need to do, especially in the earlier stage, because this is the only way that these startups will be able to scale, because they will have this trust, validation, market access, ecosystem built around them. And I think there's one last thing I want to share. There's a figure that I think is quite speaking. It's 0.5%, last year in 2024, 0.5% of startups, early stage startups, managed to scale outside of their initial market. It's so low. How is that possible? I don't have the solution, unfortunately. I think us all being here and talking to CISOs, trying to curate and to create trust with them by being a curator ourselves of strategic companies and on-point solutions for them. I think it's a first solution, but we need to collectively think about it and collectively try to bridge this gap.
Thank you very much. Bringing some of the points or highlighting some of the points you brought up, one of what I'm hearing is innovation, deep insights is about collaboration, it's about open innovation, it's about getting together a number of players in the ecosystem. I think that is what CyberLand Ireland is doing. So Cyber Ireland, is often cited as a model of ecosystems where you guys combine academia with capital, with ventures or entrepreneurs. From your experience, Manuel, where are the key lessons for building such collaborations at the national level?
Thank you, Carlos. Can you hear me? Is it better like this? Yes. Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Carlos. I think what we need to be aware of is, different clusters on a local, on a regional, and on a national level, are catering for different needs, the needs that their ecosystem has. So we need to, for example, in Ireland, when Cyber Ireland came about, the challenge that we had in Ireland was there was a skills gap. And cybersecurity companies that were in Ireland, multinational companies, as everyone knows, were, having these issues. So they were like, we need to talk to each other to address this gap. We need to coordinate, we need to collaborate, and that's how Cyber Ireland came about. And then from then on, there's been a need to cooperate more between the companies and between universities, between national authorities, and that's what we've done. And we've also, we try to foster working groups, focusing, we have a CISO forum, we have a startup forum, so that's what we need to do. But at the end of the day, at the core of clusters, what remains is that collaboration that you were saying. And Damien also took my words, because another challenge that I think we have, if we look more on a European level, is that fragmentation of the funding across European member states. And yeah, again, Damien took my words. Like, I think there's like about a 2 billion gap between what the US is investing and what Europe is investing. So, you know, we really need to look at that and think more collectively to address this gap across member states, but also together. So there's an opportunity there for innovation, for business growth that we're missing out on. And you know, to add to that, I would say, like, you know, there's lots of the pillars are already there. We just need to look at them. We need to like leverage on existing structures. We have the European Cybersecurity Organization, you know, led by industry. That's been very useful for our members in Ireland to participate, and we've taken some of the and again, it's not about, you know, lots of the things are there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to, you know, look at what's there and try to strengthen it. So at EXO, as I was saying, they do a CISO forum. So we have our own Irish CISO forum, like our own national forum. And the same for SME to market group, the same for Women for Cyber. You know, things that EXO are running on a European level, we're also bringing them to the Irish level because, you know, there's also a need there. And I think we also need to be aware of that, to call it something, soft power of events like these, of you know, meeting people, and also connecting with other fellow organizations. Like at Cyberireland, again, to give some examples from our ends, we have a partnership with the Basque government for the global internship program. So we've received for 4 years in a row interns that are coming, just graduated from business schools in the Basque country. They're coming to Ireland, they're helping us, they're getting to know the Irish ecosystem, how we do things. They're also improving their English. And, you know, it's a collaboration that's there and that we just need to strengthen and replicate across everyone, you know, where everyone you meet today, like, it's an opportunity. Don't waste it. And also, I think that it's all good about, you know, the more informal stuff, but we also need more formal activities. Again, another example that we can give from an Irish perspective is we collaborate with the cluster in the Northern Ireland, NI Cyber, which do similar activities. So we sign an MOU, you know, just to solidify that relationship, and we are collaborating on activities. You know, if we're doing a working group meeting in Dublin, why can't CISOs in the northern of Ireland come together, meet, because, you know, they're working on a similar ecosystem and they need to get to know each other. But we've also done other different types of activities, like an All-Ireland cybersecurity sector report. And, you know, it's a collaboration that was started at an event. We solidified it on an MOU, you know, just to make sure that that collaboration stays in the long term. But I think, as fellow panelists were saying, we also need solid structures that can help us do this more. You know, we can work on our own, but we need also structures that help us work with European partners and peers. So especially for startups, that would be really useful, because a lot of startups in Ireland, you know, struggle to jump the national market and go to, you know, for a more European market. But if you had a structure that helped you connect better to the European market, that would help massively. And again, there's things there. There's EXO, you have Digital SME Alliance, but we need more structure that also takes the input of the organizations that are working. So as Damien was saying, you know, bottom-up approach. And just to wrap up, I think there's no better momentum than now. You know, with European strategic autonomy, there's a momentum there to collaborate. We have a network. We just need to strengthen it, not work in isolation. So, you know, if we're talking about digital coordination in Europe, you know, the momentum is now, and like, let's not waste it, please. Thank you.
Excellent, good work. A lot of things to learn from the work that you guys are doing. Bart, you have been aerospace engineer at heart. You have been an entrepreneur. You are an investor now, kind of jack of all trades. in a good way. If you can summarize, or if you can bring those three different kind of roles, in your view, what are the main barriers preventing European cybersecurity startups from reaching champion scale?
As an aerospace engineer, I would say cybersecurity in Europe is about to take off, right? That's a starter. But no, I think in terms of barriers, a lot has been mentioned across the panel already. I think I'll kind of resonate on what Damien said initially, is fragmentation, right? I think if you look at being a startup, the single most precious thing is time and speed, right? So you want to get to market fast, and you want to have feedback from customers fast. I think that's really, being the entrepreneur, that's what you want most. You want to pitch your idea in front of a customer, tune it, evolve it, etc. And I think as investors, or as an ecosystem investor, we have to be there to enable that. And I think there in Europe, it's challenging in the way that you're always going to be in your home market. You have that initial chance, but then kind of ventilating your ideas across borders with French CISOs or whatever is more difficult. So I think that's clearly one barrier that we see. And what we do with Tin Capital, so we've started investing in cybersecurity since 2018. Initially focused primarily on the Netherlands. We work closely together with the Dutch ecosystem partners, like Innovation Quarter, Municipality of The Hague, so it's very regional focused. And then just now we're closing our second fund, is European Cyber Tech Fund, which is a 90 million fund focused across Europe. So also we've evolved as investors to kind of enable the companies that were initially invested in the Netherlands to evolve across the journey across Europe, and then eventually also to the US. And on that journey, we've built basically informal partnerships with our fellow investors across Europe. So we work very closely with Auriga. We've done, I think, 3 investments together, right, so far. Talking to Damien on a regular basis, trying to convince him to do something together. We're close, but we'll get there. And so I think that's a very important trend that I would personally like to continue. And off the back of that, what I think would be very helpful, what we can do jointly, is kind of connect our CISO network. So in the Netherlands, we're really working actively to have those CISOs. I know Sarah just mentioned they're doing the same in France. We know, eCapital in Germany, for instance, they do too. So if we can somehow, by doing stuff together, help a Dutch startup very easily to get in front of French buyers, German buyers, Spanish buyers, I think that's the biggest barrier that we can take away for those companies to catch momentum and basically take off quicker. And then maybe later on in the panel we'll get on the debate of when do you make the jump to the US. I know Enterprise Ireland has a great playbook on kind of leveraging the US. I think within our portfolio we see 2 flavors. Some companies go to US first, grow in size there, come back to Europe. Others really focus on Europe first. Not sure there's like one right approach there, but I think it's definitely part of the debate as an investor. How do you support your portfolio companies to make the jump to the US, and when do you do that, and how do you do that? So yeah, that's speed. That's coming back to barriers. That's the main one. Yeah.
So if you reflect on growth capital, talent, mobility, procurement frameworks,
yeah.
Or perhaps our own, European risk appetite, which might be different to US, or what would you say is the of those elements, the one that is being more constraining when building those large corporations,
yeah.
Large cyber champions, GP Bullhouse, Golden Titans?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around that?
So my thoughts, I'd be keen to kind of do this down the line, but I think the obvious one that's kind of always thrown out there is the gap in funding, the funding gap. So you would
public-private it's been working for a while. So again, I take Damien's words about collaboration, and that's what we try to do at Clusters, connecting all the different actors. So yeah, I think for me, the private public part resonates more, yeah.
Sarah, we kind of guessed the answer. We kind of, but surprise us.
Yeah, it would be surprising if I say not specialized. No, but on the question on capital, and I think Damien also has a point on that, is that the problem is not capital. There's something called dry powder. So it's like 400 billion euros that hasn't been invested in 2024, I think, according to PitchBook. So we don't have a problem of capital. We need places to invest in. It's better if it's specialized funds that know where to invest this money. I think we're much more cautious about where we invest, but the quality of the investment, I think, and I hope it's much better. And I think it's even more better, of course, if you go through the funnel. So if you have specialized funds, you know, really qualifying opportunity to invest.
Bart?
Generalist VCs. No, I think 100%. But you know, we're a cybersecurity specialized fund, so obviously I'll go with that. For one simple reason, personally, I think it also makes it more fun because you know more about the domain, you're able to help better. So for just those personal reasons, I will already go with that. And to add on to maybe what's already been said, what we're exploring, which relates to your question, is we've been approached by some private equity firms in the Netherlands if we could somehow collaborate. So we would bring our cybersecurity specialist know-how into their kind of PE, generalist PE approach. So I think that's interesting to see where that goes. And then on private public, agree with what's been said. Maybe I want to bring in one remark that came from a panel we did 2 weeks ago in The Hague, where some of the founders said that public institutes, governments should maybe, the way they could add most value is by being customers. So instead of kind of bringing in funding, you know, try a contract or be a customer. So that's maybe just something to add to the debate or conversation.
Then last question to you guys. Very quick, yes or no answer. Should public institutional investor have the same return on investment than private? Yes, no.
No.
Should public institutional investors should have the same return on investment than private? No, no.
We are public funded,
Yes
so
or no?
I'll go for yes. I'll go for yes.
Yes or no?
Actually, on that, I'm very contrary. I go for yes because there was one ecosystem that works very well in the world, and again, the name has changed. I showed my age, but basically it still exists. In Israel, there is an organization called the OCS, Office of Chief Scientist. So this is basically an organization which is funded by the Finance Ministry, by the Research Ministry, Education Ministry, and so on, that basically invests like a private equity. It was set up by an ex-Apax UK person. So the way it works, like zero coupon, if I'm technical, debt or grants for company and startups. The minute the company becomes acquired and the IP leaves the country, that converts with a full ratchet, in equity. And so this is a self-funded mechanism. So I think I all in favor of positive and good return for big institutions, so that it's evergreen and they can reinvest and reinject the money as long as it's basically used for the same purpose, and which is the case in Israel essentially. So if the public institution backing, companies and so on make money and reinvest money for that purpose, it's fantastic. It's a self-funded and sustainable model. So actually, I'm for yes, pretty much.
Carlos, so short. So first of all, thank you all. As a summary, what we have heard today, I think, is quite a clear message. First, Europe has extraordinary capacities, talent, ecosystem, technology excellence, and growing investor appetite, both from inside Europe and outside Europe. Specialized funds like Auriga, team, so on, are already leading this pack of cyber champion creations. I think one of the common elements has been collaboration across the panel, and that reflects one of the needs of the creation of the ecosystem. The next step is certainly to scale. We have a growing market, we have those different characteristics, and now we need to take the next step in terms of going beyond the startup ecosystem that is created in Europe. Let's continue building on a stronger, more secure Europe. Elements such as competitive European cybersecurity future and cyber next generation probably will be one of the themes for the next fund, maybe. Thank you very much for your time.